the comedy show where Americans in America covering American news are called foreign agents by idiots. So Trump has removed the U.S. troops from a small area of northern Syria. And look, while I'm no fan of Trump, watching our corporate media over the past 2 weeks suddenly care about innocent civilians, it's shocking. It's shocking on a level I haven't seen since I gotta go to when I was 10 years old. My hamster named Bob, who lived alone in his cage since we got him 2 weeks earlier, he gave birth to 9 baby hamsters. True story. That's how shocking it is. Anyway, mainstream media has been outraged by Turkey's attack on the Kurds in Syria.
This video, obtained by ABC News, appears to show the fury of the Turkish attack on the border town of Tel Aviv.
A border town bombarded by Turkey's military. This video right here appearing to show Turkey's military bombing Kurd civilians in a Syrian border town. The Kurds, who fought alongside the U.S. against ISIS.
And it's not just the media. Our moral lodestar herself, Hillary Clinton, said the scene of Turkey invading Syria was a sickening horror. Hillary, what would we do without you? For comic relief. But it turns out through this whole Turkish invasion thing, there's something your corporate media is not telling you. Imagine my surprise! Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone reported the U.S. has backed 21 of the 28 crazy militias leading Turkey's brutal invasion of northern Syria. That's right, we birthed the vast majority of these gruesome killers, much like a male lonely hamster. Sometimes births baby hamsters when he's bored. Anyway, according to a research paper published this October by the pro-government Turkish think tank SETA, out of the 28 factions in the Turkish mercenary force, 21 were previously supported by the United States, 3 of them via the Pentagon's program to combat Daesh, aka ISIS. 18 of these factions were supplied by the CIA via the MOM Operations Room in Turkey, a joint intelligence operation room of the Friends of Syria to support the armed opposition. 14 factions of the 28 were also recipients of the U.S.-supplied TOW anti-tank guided missiles. So these cold-hearted killers that we've been flipping out about, all these bloodthirsty murderers, were trained and armed by us. Why, in God's name, am I not surprised? And our mountain of shit mainstream media, trademark, doesn't think this fact might be important? This is like freaking out that someone is grabbing your dick without consent, and yet you're not mentioning that it's your own hand. Officer, I found the culprit. I found him. The Gray Zone continued. Many of the fighters were former members of the Free Syrian Army, the force once armed by the CIA and Pentagon and branded as moderate rebels. You see, moderate rebels are a myth that we've been sold by our U.S. propaganda machine. Moderate rebels, they go in the same file as zero-calorie donuts and free-loving, empathetic hedge fund managers. And intellectual, thought-provoking Donald Trump statements as well. None of those exist, especially the hedge fund. Our neocons and neoliberals, along with a servile corporate media, have spent years trying to convince us of fairy tales in Syria. John McCain even went over there and met with the moderate rebels and took photos with Salim Idris, who is now the defense minister of Syria's Turkish-backed interim government. Ah, John McCain. Isn't it nice to see that even after he's passed on, his bloodthirsty ways continue? Here's more from Blumenthal. Virtually the entire apparatus of anti-Assad insurgents armed and equipped under the Obama administration has been repurposed by the Turkish military to serve as the spearhead of its brutal invasion of northern Syria. So corporate mainstream media, in their frenzy of concern for the Kurds in Syria, is not telling us that the U.S. was using the Kurds all along to try to take over parts of Syria, not mentioning that the U.S. is there as part of an illegal invasion of the country, not telling us that the U.S. has turned our backs on the Kurds before and left them to be murdered and imprisoned, and not telling us that the ruthless killers Turkey is sending in were armed and trained by the United States. That's a lot of shit to not tell us. That's like, by the way, now that you're 35, I want to let you know your uncle is your father. And your mother is your pet iguana. Oh, and the ABC news footage showing Turkey bombing and shooting at the Kurds. Let's see, there it is.
This video
Well,
by ABC News
that does look strikingly similar to this footage of a Kentucky gun show. I think the similarity is due to the fact that the Syrian footage is a Kentucky gun show. It might have been a tip-off that in an actual battle, it's unusual to fire at things that are constantly exploding in ridiculous fireballs like the set of Fast and Furious. Unless you're bombing the same area you're fighting in, which seems ill-advised. ABC News has since taken down the video and apologized for accidentally showing us all a video of rednecks in Kentucky and passing it off as Turkish fighters in Syria. Accidentally? You know how hard it would be to do that accidentally? It would be like accidentally sending a nude photo to your colleague and then going, sorry, I thought that was my kid's drawing of a puppy dog. Anyway, just know that until you hear your media reporting on the fact that we armed and trained most of the fucking insane militias on the border of Syria, you are not getting the real news. You're getting a pile of shit that has been sculpted into the word news. Coming to you from Washington, D.C., the belly of the beast, this is Redacted tonight.
Let's roll, never get their control. They got their money, but we got our soul. Let's roll, never get their control. They got their money, but we got our soul.
Welcome, I'm Lee Camp. Now let's take the news from behind. Protests have broken out around the world. Spain, Chile, Honduras, Haiti, Ecuador, France, England, Pakistan, Narnia, Wakanda, the 7-Eleven down the street from here. Okay, that protest was just me demanding they allow customers to stick our heads underneath the nozzle and spray the Slurpee directly into our face holes. I was gonna wash it off after. I'm not a monster. Anyway, some of these international protests get mainstream coverage in the US, some don't. Can you guess which is which? If it's a US-backed puppet government being protested, then there's silence. If it's a government outside of the tentacles of control of our US empire, then all of a sudden, Chris Cuomo has a fucking Woody. We get 24/7 coverage while he humps his desk. So with protests popping off around the world, why aren't there protests in America? Why aren't we Americans putting that WWE match on pause, throwing down our now legal marijuana, jumping on our fucking annoying electric scooters, and making our way down to the protest lines? Well, we would, except there are WWE matches to watch. There's legal weed to smoke. And scooters to ride directly into the backs of people over 80. Listen, lady, if you didn't want to get slammed into the pavement by a futuristic vehicle you don't even understand, you shouldn't have lived this long. Your choice. But also, there actually are protests going on in the U.S. It's just that they're often small and they're rarely covered on your cable news. There are teachers striking in Chicago. There were recently auto workers striking against GM. There are pipeline protests in Virginia, West Virginia, Louisiana, and elsewhere. People protesting to end war and get clean water. People demanding police accountability and affordable health care. There are protests. But luckily, we don't have to hear about them on NPR. No, NPR is too busy telling you about an off-Broadway musical that deftly highlights the need for more spiritually minded African American women to get involved in the campaign to repurpose your soiled Q-tips by using them to build miniature models of log cabins used by Jamestown settlers. It's a hell of a show. Another ongoing protest is the one to ban facial recognition. Just last week, Berkeley, California became the 4th U.S. city to ban facial recognition in a unanimous vote. Yeah. Well, I just don't understand why these damn yogurt-brained hippies want to ban facial recognition.
In 2018, machines that can read your face will go mainstream, changing the way we live. Your face will become your password, unlocking smartphones and bank accounts.
Face recognition in 2018 will change our lives.
But the technology will also have the power to covertly track your movements. It will even be able to guess your sexuality through facial features alone.
Jesus Christ! 2018 sounds fucking horrifying. Hope we never get there. Luckily, I don't have to worry about that sexual orientation thing. I only have sex with my couch. And I don't think the AI has that option in the database yet. But the truth is, facial recognition is truly terrifying. You people watching at home, if you hate facial recognition like I do, blink twice and it'll be recorded in your permanent record. I mean, seriously, once it goes mainstream, you will be tracked everywhere. You can't do anything without being watched. If the government decides to go after you for any reason, they can go back into all public camera footage and follow your every move, possibly going back years. Did you ever piss in an alley? All right? That's a sex crime in some states. Did you ever have an affair or buy some drugs or throw a rock through a window or sell your gallbladder to a little person holding a cat in a parking deck? All right? We've all done at least 3 of those things. And the government is going to expose and prosecute you for everything. Say what you will, but I don't trust those motherfuckers, okay? Think of it this way. How much do you, right now, trust Mitch McConnell? Okay, now imagine 100,000 of him, and they're watching you take a bath. We're not that far off from that. In fact, it could happen as soon as 2018. I know this sounds like paranoia, but have you noticed the paranoid people are always right? The paranoid said one day all our phone calls would be listened to. Now all our phone calls are listened to. The paranoids said one day armed drones would drop bombs on people. Now armed drones drop bombs on people. The paranoids said in the future, Justin Bieber would still be around. And Justin Bieber is still around. The paranoids said cell tower radiation could be giving us cancer. Now, even Scientific fucking American says we have no reason to believe 5G wireless is safe. For those of you who don't know, 5G is the next generation of wireless technology that the big telecoms are beginning to place throughout society. And Scientific American points out that 240 scientists who are experts in the field of biologic and health effects of non-ionizing electromagnetic fields, which is nerd speak for the shit wireless towers jizz all over us. 240 scientists signed an appeal for stronger limits to exposure. But I gotta say, I think their appeal is, it's overreacting, okay? It said numerous recent scientific publications have shown that electromagnetic fields affect living organisms at levels well below most international and national guidelines. Effects include increased cancer risk. Not a problem if you enjoy cancer, all right? Cellular stress. Not a problem for me because I have a great cellular plan. It's like $80 a month, and that includes free dick pics, all right? Increase in harmful free radicals. Not worried about it because I fucking am one. Genetic damages. I'm pretty sure that's a good thing, okay? Doesn't Spider-Man technically have genetic damages? What, are we just gonna say no to any chance of superpowers ever? Fuck that. What else we got? Structural and functional changes of the reproductive system. I'm totally cool with it, all right? A, I hate babies. B, I'm not worried about the couch getting pregnant. Next up, learning and memory deficits. I don't even understand what that means. Neurological disorders. I don't even understand what that means. Plus, I don't even understand what that means. And finally, negative impacts on general well-being in humans. Doesn't concern me. I thoroughly dislike humans, okay? Makes sense because they come from babies. Anyway, there is a growing movement to actually do extensive testing with 5G before we just shoot it through the entire human race. Apparently, the big telecoms, along with the military and our government, think we're just goddamn guinea pigs. Some other quick headlines before we have to go to break. Bernie Sanders had the biggest campaign event of any candidate of the primary to date. Over 20,000 people. And here is how our mainstream media responded to the news. I was gonna say their head was lodged somewhere else, but the sand will do. Also, barely in the news, imprisoned journalist Julian Assange appeared in court in Britain, and the court continued their unfair efforts to railroad him. Assange is suffering from what amounts to torture. He did not look well in court and had trouble recalling his own birth date when he was asked. Here is the mainstream media's coverage. But in their defense, maybe they're just too busy, okay? They don't have enough time and manpower to cover that story. Here's a screenshot, this is real, of yesterday's Apple news feed. CNN is reporting a Chinese cafe paints dogs to look like pandas. And a little lower down, not to forget the hard news, CNN also reporting a man grew a 900-pound pumpkin and then used it as a boat. That's ironic because someone also grew a billion-dollar news channel and then used it as a bucket of horse piss. We have to go to a quick break, but if you ever miss an episode, you can get it at youtube.com/redacted tonight. I'll be right back with a lot more. I'm still Lee Camp. Addiction treatment centers are in high demand because of the opioid crisis that's plaguing our country. But thanks to our for-profit healthcare system, drug users have become easy targets for scam rehab centers that offer zero treatment while getting rich from patient insurance claims. Today, these fraudulent treatment centers pay patient brokers a fee to infiltrate addiction recovery groups and find their next victims. For more on this, we go to our senior drug counselor, Natalie McGill. Natalie, it sounds like these patient brokers are doing the devil's work.
Oh, come on, that's not fair. Most patient brokers are also recovering addicts just trying to help other people out while making a few $1,000s. As a recovering video game junkie, I was once paid thousands of dollars from the National Park Service to infiltrate online game chats and ask the players the last time they saw daylight. Or played with a ball that wasn't already attached to their body. In fact, I was so successful, I was only called the N-word once a week.
And that's good?
It was pretty much hourly for everyone else.
Okay, but even if the patient brokers didn't know what they were doing, it doesn't sound like these treatment centers were in the business of making people healthier.
Duh, Lee, this is America. All right, if people get healthier, then how else are they supposed to make money? All right, everyone's bottom line depends on someone else's rock bottom. Otherwise, ABC wouldn't air 28 seasons of Dancing with the Stars. And I couldn't make money betting which week Sean Spicer will fall and break something. My money's on one of his legs. But if it's his teeth, then he can't lie through them anymore, so.
Fair point, but the profit motive is bad enough in this system, and then failing to offer actual addiction treatment is not only fraudulent, it's dangerous.
Well, clearly these families should have known better if a patient broker sold them on the idea of moving their loved ones to sober homes in South Florida. No one goes to Florida to get sober. You go to see a drunk alligator in a Mickey Mouse hat ride an ATV into a lake. Otherwise, what was the point of going? But even if a family doesn't realize Florida isn't the place for sobriety, then an insurance company will. Once a company thinks the treatment is a sham, they'll stop paying claims, at which point the patient is kindly asked to leave the sober home.
You mean they're homeless on the streets of South Florida?
Well, you're not really homeless in Florida as much as you're just spending a little extra time under God's tanning booth. But not for too long, other patient brokers will snatch these patients up. Though maybe not so much in Florida anymore, since their lawmakers cracked down on patient brokers and inspired other states to do the same. In Palm Beach County alone, police have arrested 95 allegedly fraudulent treatment operators and patient brokers in the past 2 years.
Well, it's great they all have criminal records. It would be nice if, I don't know, the fucking Sackler family had criminal records too, since it was, right? Yeah, since it was it was their monster Purdue Pharma that hooked Americans on opioids in the first place. They're just as much to blame.
Well, bounty hunters are technically brokers too, so you could just send one after the Sacklers. Just don't call Dog the bounty hunter. I've already heard the N-word enough.
Natalie McGill, everyone! Moving on, this week in Chicago, public teachers are on strike demanding more city investment in their schools and communities, but the mayor says they should come back to work without a contract. For more on this story, here's Redacted correspondent Anders Lee.
Chicago, Illinois, wealthiest city in the Midwest, home of the Chicago Stock Exchange, which trades in livestock and meat market securities. Not that kind of meat market. I do love that place, though. Yes, thank you. Every day, hundreds of brokers compound the city's riches by speculating on Chicago's Italian beef sandwich-based economy. But not all residents are happy with the way public education is being churned out of the sausage grinder. Since October 17th, the Chicago Teachers Union has been on strike. Years of cuts and privatization have left most of the city's public schools looking like this one. Despite attacks from politicians who try and pit teachers against students, the union has come together with the community to demand a bargain for the common good, an agenda that not only addresses adequate staffing and class sizes in public schools, but housing, racial, and economic justice in the city at large. Thankfully, new Chicago mayor and former Hogwarts professor Lori Lightfoot has reached a conclusion to the strike. On Tuesday, her office issued a letter promising to continue negotiations with teachers while also directing them to get back to work. Truly, some masterful negotiation tactics right there. Only someone with the light-footed heels of Hermes could maneuver such a closing offer, to strike a grand bargain without actually having to do any bargaining. The teachers' union, however, didn't quite appreciate Lightfoot's feat. No pun intended.
The mayor sent out a letter saying that she wants students to go back to class during the negotiations. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't know if the mayor is familiar with what unions do, but we've gotten more deals, more tentative agreements in these last 2 days than we have in 10 months.
Come on, you gotta let Mayor Lori work that light-footed magic. She wants to improve Chicago public schools too. She just needs some time for you to work without a contract so she can get around to it. And she believes all the same things you do. Just look at what she campaigns on. An elected representative school board rather than one appointed by the mayor, a freeze on charter school expansion, strong investments in public schools. She even told the Chicago Sun-Times, as mayor, I will provide each school with basic educational support positions like librarians, nurses, social workers. These are the CTU's own contract demands in the strike. Now that she's in office and none of that stuff is happening is exactly the time to trust her. The reason that Chicago public schools aren't getting the resources they need isn't because of billionaires trying to destroy public sector unions. Look, Mayor Lightfoot would love to meet the union's demands, but Chicago just doesn't have enough money. The state of Illinois did just allocate an extra $1 billion for Chicago public schools, but $1 billion just so happens to be the same amount of money needed for the brand new Lincoln Yards luxury development. I know, it seems frivolous, but we gotta think big. This kind of urban design project is the future. It's even being built out of the futures of several thousand school children. Just look at those countertops. That type of granite can only be funded by the salaries of at least 12 school nurses. According to a poll taken just before the strike, a majority of Chicagoans support the union over the city government. Mayor Lightfoot thinks that could change, though, when student athletes are forced to forfeit their games and matches. Let's see what Chicago's high school soccer coaches have to say.
To CPS and to the mayor, red card, you have been out of line for years, and it is about time that we use this opportunity to fully fund our sports program.
Okay. Yeesh, that Chicago accent is so strong I feel like a gust of wind just slung a deep dish pizza into my ears. It doesn't look like Chicago teachers and school staff are going anywhere without a contract that meets their demands. And if strikes in places like West Virginia or Oklahoma are any indication, governments have a way of finding money for their schools if there's enough pressure. When unions are organized, militant, and connected to the surrounding community, they're pretty hard to defeat. Corporate education reformers can try, but they might end up getting traded on the Chicago Stock Exchange. Reporting from Chicago, I'm Anders Lee with Redacted Tonight.
Here are your headlines from the future. Tomorrow you'll read, Pentagon successfully distracts Trump from real issues with discussion of bringing troops home from planet Vulcan. And in January, we'll learn, police in Philadelphia deciding who to arrest using new racial recognition software. And in 2 weeks, ABC News exclusive footage of graphic fighting in Afghanistan found to actually be clipped from The Muppets Take Manhattan. That's our show, but text the word redacted to 444-999. You can sign up to our email list. Also, you can watch every show on Pluto.tv, channel 279. Until next time, good night, and keep fighting. Thank you, guys. Thank you all so much.